Hey, Bay Youth. Welcome to the So Good Podcast.
So good!
Welcome to the So Good Podcast.
And it's So Good Saturday.
I'm Aisha.
And I'm Lou.
And today we have a phenomenal guest that I'm just the most excited to listen to. Let's have her introduce herself.
Hi, guys. My name is Mel. I'm so glad to be here. I'm eternally freaking out, but I'm excited to be here.
This is good.
That was phenomenal.
I feel like we should totally start off, you know how we start off every episode with our So Goods of the Week. So Mel, why don't you tell us what your So Good is?
Okay, my So Good of the Week is actually very good. So
Yeah?
if you know me, you would know my car is making a weird sound right
Okay.
now. Okay. And it's been going on for like a couple months. It first was brought to my attention by the one and only Nathan Jones. And
Oh,
he said,
praise.
hey,
Shout out.
your car sounds really weird. And then a couple weeks ago after Wednesday Night Youth, Pastor Nathan was like, hey, Mel, your car shouldn't sound like that. And I was like, okay, great. The irony of the situation is my husband is fully a mechanic. And so I told him, I was like, hey, there's a weird sound going on. And he was like, cool. We'll figure it out. Ended up finding out that there was like a whole thing going on with it. And so my car got fixed this week.
Oh, it got fixed?
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
So now,
awesome.
Oh, that
like,
is so good.
It's a good time. Now I get to actually drive in silence, which
No,
is
yeah.
so good.
This is really good. I'm happy.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think my So Good of the Week. Actually, today, I got a phone call from Sacramento, and they were like, hey, welcome to the Sacramento, whatever their Sac State's Hornets.
Yep.
So then they basically said, you're accepted. Welcome to the college, all the things. So we have options. I think the last podcast I mentioned Davis,
Yeah.
and then this one I mentioned Sac State. So praise God for options.
Dude.
Yeah, that's really exciting. I'm happy for you, dude. My So Good would, okay, let's just revisit. Okay. The last thrift store that I went to that I have to share, like I can't miss it, right?
All right.
Anyways, it was this small one. To be honest, I don't really remember it that well. I didn't get anything, so it's not really that awesome. But it's cool to go to like the small ones because sometimes the big ones get a little bit overwhelming and they don't
Right.
have as
Yeah.
good like really old or like really cool finds. And so it was definitely cool to go to a really small one and find just like this old antique jewelry and like things that you don't usually, I mean, it wasn't great, but it was cool. So that was my So Good because I just like to go to random thrift stores.
So thrift store in the first podcast, thrift store in the second podcast,
Thrift store in
and
the,
the third
third.
podcast.
So,
Love
yeah.
I
to see
wonder
it.
what you're going to say for the fourth.
Oh, I think
should
we
just be a
should
thing.
we should almost create my own segment of not doing so good, but what's my So Good thrift?
Yeah, what's your thrift store of the week or
Oh.
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Another cool segment here on the So Good podcast that I absolutely love is our Bev of the week,
Oh,
Bev
yeah.
of the day, all the things. Mel, what's your Bev of the day?
Guys, I swear, I'm like in a very interesting era. My Bev of the day is a San Pellegrino. Okay. I have been in my
no.
mineral water era. I
Okay.
don't know why. But like I'm so content right now. It's a good time.
Shout out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Lou does not.
I
like-
know, judge me. Jeez.
I'm not judging. I'm observing.
Oh.
Just for anyways, I'll tell you guys what my So Good Bev of the week is. That's actually not the title of it, but is a Dr. Pepper.
Dr.
Wow.
Pepper.
I was gonna go with a yerba mate again this week. Again, didn't go for it because it
What'd you
didn't
have
have it in
last
the
time?
store. I had a latte.
Oh, okay, right. Oh,
So-
right. This is true. Today I'm rocking a sweet tea. I think last time I rocked a yerba mate, but we have a sweet tea. Still in the same family all the time, right? Aren't they like all sweet teas? Isn't yerba mate a sweet
That's
tea?
an herbal tea.
Tea.
I was gonna say, I was like, is that not the same?
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm not the. I'm not the.
I don't know.
I'm not a
just-
tea connoisseur.
Yeah.
Well,
me-
with that, I mean, those are some pretty good things, but I feel like we have some pretty good stuff ahead of us.
I'm
Yeah,
so
we do.
excited.
Mel, would you like to just tell us a little bit about how you got to the Bay, a little bit more about yourself,
Yeah.
your position, why you're doing ministry, all the sorts?
all the things.
All the good things. Yeah. So fun fact, I actually have been at the Bay Church like literally my entire life.
Insane.
I was born and raised here. My parents started bringing me here when I was just a wee little lad. And I've been coming here my entire life. So I went through our kids ministry. I went through our youth ministry, did an internship here, and I actually joined our staff December of 2019.
2019?
All right? Yeah. December
Wow, I was just a
2019.
little sophomore.
No, I was a 19-year-old. I fully, like, my life plan was like, oh, I'll like join our church's staff when I'm like 25. And right before I turned 20 years old, I was 19, I ended up joining our staff as the administrative assistant to Pastor Ray and Pastor Warren L. Brooks. They were over our pastoral care ministry and spiritual formation ministry at the time. And then, of course, we all know what happens in 2020. The pandemic hits, and like it was a crazy time and a half. I was working a receptionist desk at the time. So it literally was like me, one of the Pastor Jasons, and then like someone from finance. And like those were all the people on our campus at the time. So it was just a super crazy ride. Can't even remember when, but there was a point one day where Pastor Ray came up to me and he was like, "Hey, I'm going to the Brentwood campus. Would you go with me?" And me, being a crazy person, said, "Yeah, why not?"
I say yes
because,
to it,
like,
too.
you know, who knows what that job's gonna look like?
Who
I'll
doesn't
just go.
say yes to
Who
that,
doesn't
you know?
say to, yeah.
I know. I feel like you just have to. So I ended up going with him to the Brentwood campus, was there as the Brentwood campus admin for a while. At some point, I also got to be the youth admin. So I was like working full time, but like doing two different positions. So that was kind of crazy. And then eventually I ended up being able to be our full-time youth director, and I'm
yeah.
loving it.
Oh, yeah.
And
It's
she
a good
does a
time.
phenomenal job.
Does
guys.
everything.
Mel's
Oh,
literally the
gosh,
best. Keeps
Yeah.
everything running.
Bro, I
No,
feel
literally.
like I have loved my time in youth ministry, and I've loved my time being our youth director, and like I'm really excited for what God has for me next. So
Yeah.
it's a good time.
Oh, I love that. You mentioned just being a part of the Bay Church for like almost ever. Your
Basically.
entire life, basically.
The church was actually built around me.
No, literally.
yeah, basically. That's what you're saying.
And I know from me, for being a part of youth ministry, I was able to build a lot of like relationships and cherish a lot of relationships that I've had and found within this last year of being a part of this like youth team and whatnot. So can you share a bit about like a bit of background experiences and whatnot that you've had with relationships as you've been in ministry and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like relationships are kind of this like pivot point in my life. Like it's something that I constantly go back to. I love all of the relationships that I get to have with different people in my life. And I feel like I've had so many different experiences with either friends or with mentors or with siblings and parents. And I mean, like the list just goes on of all of these like beautiful relationships that I've been able to have with people. And I really like, I think of what our church's like core values are of like loving God and loving people. Like I really do just love people. Does that mean I have it all figured out? No. Like I can't tell you how many times I've been in like a tough situation with a friend or another person in my life, and I've been like, dude, like what am I supposed to do with this? And yeah, I don't have it all figured out in any sense of the word, but I really do love having, cherished relationships with people. And I love just seeing how people can impact my life, but also how I can, maybe impact theirs in a little way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think relationships would be classified in my brain easy to navigate at all.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, it is a blessing when you find something that is so easygoing and it's awesome, but I don't ever think there's not gonna never be a hiccup in something. But are there any specific aspects of relations that you're particularly super passionate about that you want to maybe share? Or-
Yeah, I mean, you guys, like, I am in my book era. Like, I
As you
have
should
been,
be.
like,
I'm ready for this.
so I brought a book with me today. This is a book actually that I went through with my husband, Carlos. This was before we got married, though. We ended up going through this book. And let me tell y'all, the amount of times that I literally sobbed my eyes out, like, it was bad, like, ugly
So what you're
cry.
saying is I'm gonna go read it.
Yeah, if you like actually want to just have no tears left in your body, I so
Okay, perfect.
recommend
That's
it.
my book.
It's called the How We Love book. Like I said, my husband and I went through this book, but I feel like it was so impactful and transformational in the way that I thought about relationships with people. One thing that this book talks about and goes through is that in your life, starting as early as like childhood, like literally like the moment like you enter this world, like you are starting to collect data, like you are starting to just like take in information. And so there comes a point where you start learning what we call this dance. So it's this dance of like how you love people, how you have relationships with people, how you interact with them, and navigating that dance is hard at times. On top of that, when you add other people into the mix, it can be kind of overwhelming. And so something that the book talks about is like, how do you navigate these different rhythms with people? And something, a quote from it, it says, "Our experiences growing up good and bad, left a lasting imprint in our souls that determined our beliefs and expectations about how to give love and receive love. And I feel like that just like ties that whole concept like into just a nice little bow of like, it's really teaching us how we give love to other people, how we receive it. And if we really are, you know, going to be people that chase after God, that love God, then we should be loving people well. And so, yeah, I feel like just understanding how to navigate that dance with other people, like I said, it can be really taxing at times, but also it can be a beautiful thing when you learn to find, you know, that beat with someone, where you learn to find those steps with someone. It can be a really rewarding thing, but there might be some misstep.
Yeah.
100%. You mentioned Carlos.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
We love Carlos.
You know?
If you guys don't know, that's Mel's husband or whatever.
Shout out.
Shout out.
He's a great guy.
And I just want to know, like, and I'm sure, like, the viewers want to know, like, what are some successful, like, key things to having a successful and healthy relationship with someone? And you're currently married, happily married to homie G Carlos.
Happily, yeah.
Happily.
I'm just kidding.
Well,
Yes, happily, yes, happily.
So, like, yeah, like, what do you think is a successful tip or, like, a key tip that is able to have a healthy relationship with your partner?
Yeah. I mean, again, you guys, I am in no way an expert. Like,
Yeah.
we've been married like a year and some months at this point. But I think like a big thing for us is, and it's like the things that you hear all the time, but like they really are true. I think like a huge one for us is communication, and just being really clear and honest with each other. And sometimes that's really hard. That's really difficult. Like, I think we recently entered a season where, you know, we weren't, I think, communicating as much as we previously were, because we felt like, well, hey, like, I'm going through this really tough time. Let me kind of figure this out. And not to be like selfish in any way or to be like, you know, you can't handle it type way. It was just like we kind of were both figuring it out. But then we came to this general consensus of like, oh, shoot, we're kind of both in a tough time. Like, that's crazy. So like just having open and honest communication with each other, I think is huge. I think another one is like individuality within your relationship. I think that's been a huge thing for me and Carlos, is like we are both highly independent people. Like I stay doing my own things all the time. Like Carlos, he is a super independent person. He like, oh my gosh, he just has his whole, in my mind, I'm like, he has his whole life put together and I'm still trying to put the pieces together. But yeah, I feel like just those two things have really helped us, because otherwise I feel like we'd kind of be wrapped up in each other. Kind of like I said, like in this dance where we'd be misstepping a lot more because, you know, we might be stepping on each other's toes or just running into these like major roadblocks. But we've been able to have beautiful moments of individuality, but also togetherness has been kind of huge for us.
I think that's a really big part of specifically romantic relationships, but with any relationship, it's really easy to come to a point with somebody where you're codependent on them or you lose yourself in a relationship. So I think that's really beautiful. I was even going to ask you what you thought about individuality within romantic relationships and how you guys navigate that, but I feel like you explained it beautifully. Do you ever feel like, though you guys can be so individual, that is a huge hinder to you guys? I mean, maybe that is the communication part where you shared like, oh, sometimes we're always handling things on our own rather than doing it together. But do you feel like sometimes, because I think it's a lot of times communicated, oh, you need to be independent. And I mean, I even see it from my peers. I see it from people around me, like they're not independent at all in their relationship and don't know how to be their own person. Do you ever feel like you've come to that point with Carlos of not knowing how to be independent without him, or way too independent without him? Do you feel like you're leaning one way or the other?
No, yeah, I understand. Yeah. I feel like for us, we've probably leaned more on the edge of like being overly independent. Like there have definitely been times, I think of this example, we have a small group that we're a part of, and we kind of were texting in our small group, and they were like, hey guys, like, should we do this for the small group? And in my mind, I was just like, yeah, like let's do it. So I just said yes. And then like 30 minutes later, I was like, oh, wait, like that kind of like, I should have talked about that with Carlos first instead of just like coming out like with an answer for both of us. And so I feel like that's been like a big thing for us is like for me specifically is where I'm like, I have to kind of backtrack and be like, wait a second, let me talk to Carlos first, because we really are like, we are operating now as a unit. We are operating as two people coming together, two imperfect people coming together. And so, we need to communicate, and we need to make sure that, we are making decisions together. So I know that's been a big thing for me. I can't think of a time though where like we maybe got lost in each other, so to say. I feel like that, just being such type A people, so being, older siblings, being people that, really are just like headstrong in who we are, like that hasn't really been a huge thing for us, but it's probably the opposite end of the spectrum.
Yeah, that's good. I feel like that can be a blessing though. Like not, I think it's really hard to come out of trying to find yourself without having someone else along with you. So that's encouraging as somebody like who sees other people do that. And now it's like, okay, there might be somebody for me out there one day that will be just as independent as me. Because sometimes I'm a little too independent. Let's be honest. Sometimes I'm like, okay,
All
leave
right,
me
whatever.
alone.
Forget you.
Goodness gracious.
That actually makes me think of another thing too. I think something that changed my perspective on dating and relationships before I met Carlos is understanding the concept of soulmate versus soulmate. I know Pastor Nathan recently did a message on this, and it's something that I've heard even from Pastor John too. I remember I was sitting in a staff meeting as an intern one day, and Pastor John, he was just, whenever Pastor John is in a meeting, he is just like giving you so many leadership principles. You're sitting there and you're just like, oh my goodness, this is amazing, but there's a lot happening. But he kind of just randomly went into this bunny trail, and I just remember sitting there and like for some reason something in my brain just clicked. And he was talking about this concept of having a soulmate, S-O-U-L, versus a soulmate, S-O-L-E, having one person. And how in your life you are probably going to meet like 30 soulmates, S-O-U-L. Like you're probably going to meet 30 people that have the potential to be the one. And I feel like that's a huge thing that we talk about in our culture. Like we see it in like Disney movies all the time. We see it in TV shows of like finding the one, and how that's just like your mission in life. Like I think about all these TV shows like 90 Day Fiance and like The Bachelor, and just like all these things are like all about finding the one for you. And like the reality is like there's probably like 30 variants of that person out there. That's just the honest truth. And I remember the first time I heard that, I was like, wow, like I kind of never really thought about it that way, because I really did just want to believe in the beauty of finding a soulmate, an S-O-U-L, someone that just understood me. And really a lot of mine and Carlos's relationship has been learning how to understand each other better. We're constantly talking about like our mental health with each other. We're constantly trying to understand each other better. It takes a lot of work. It's taken, for me, a lot of tears and a lot of trying to figure things out along the way. But I really have come to appreciate this concept of having one person in my life. And at the same time, having someone that I can rely on, that can also rely on me.
100%.
That makes me wonder, this goes along with, just because obviously I think you're wise in every aspect of relationships, whether that's parents, siblings, friends, romantic. How do you handle conflict? And what, not just within romantic relationships, but maybe even your parents. And that could be generational differences too, if we want to go into that. But if you want to like, start with, how do you handle conflicts within your marriage? And then maybe we can go into parents too.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think that's a huge thing we all run into the wall of in relationships is, what do I do when I face conflict with someone?
Yeah.
And I feel like that is a hard question to answer because it's so specific to each person. It's so specific to each situation. I know recently, I remember I kind of was on the hunt for like the right answer to a situation. And I was just like, okay, maybe if I listen to like a sermon or a podcast, or like if I, seek out this person or that person, I was like, someone's got to have like a clear cut answer for me. And I finally just realized like, there's kind of no clear-cut answer. And a lot of times I think that's why like we have to keep God at the center of our relationships with people. We have to keep God at the center of our lives, because otherwise like we will run into these moments where we're kind of dancing around conflict. We're kind of dancing around the different things going on, whether, we're wanting to avoid it, or whether we're wanting to, just hope that it might resolve itself, whatever it may be. So when it comes to conflict, it really is like specific to your temperament, who you are, and that other person that you're having conflict with. I think a huge thing for me that I've kind of come to realize with is, you've maybe heard the saying before of like, your perception is your reality. That's a huge thing. Like we talk about it. I feel like I hear it in a sermon almost every single week. Your perception is your reality. I think sometimes you need a reality check. I think sometimes, we get caught up in a lot of our emotions. We get caught up in a lot of our feelings. And like, I think that's been a huge thing that like Carlos has taught me to do is I'm a very emotionally based person. I like live in my gut. Like I am someone who like relies so heavily on my emotions. Whereas Carlos is like the complete opposite of that. He relies a lot on like logical, methodical thinking. And me, my brain is off 90%. Just kidding. And so I think just like getting to a place where you're kind of able to step back, have some time of prayer, seek good counsel, but also just like come to a place of like, okay, like, can we talk this out? Maybe is the relationship needing to go to a different place? Is it really even the relationship for me? I think that's been a hard question I've had to answer numerous times. And I've not always handled those situations in the best way. Like I think of times in high school where I had a relationship with someone and I realized, ooh, this probably isn't the relationship for me. But then I waited like 3 or 4 months before I actually like talked to them or like cut ties with them or anything like that. And that also wasn't the move. So I think, I don't even know if that really answers your question. I know that conflict is hard, but seek God, pray, find good counsel in your life, talk to people, ask them questions, and from there, like make a move.
Yeah.
I think sometimes we stall ourselves when really, we kind of know what the decision is and we know what needs to happen. And whether it's ego, whether it's, our, past hurts, whatever, the list goes on, whatever it is that's holding you back, take that step. It could make a big difference in your relationship and where you're at.
Yeah. No, I love that. And the second part of the question mentioned like your guys' relationship with your parents. I feel like your relationship with your parents, at least just
That's
from
a hard
watching,
one.
at least from watching my parents and their marriage, I feel like a lot of the way that they love and the way that they communicate can stem from their own relationship with their parents and whether there was enough communicating, whether there wasn't. So kind of like how did your relationship with your parents or like Carlos's parents too like play a role in your guys' marriage? Like was there any like generational differences like Lou mentioned that you guys had to like navigate through? Because I feel like parents play a really big role or guardians or whatever like in your guys' marriage or in your relationship.
Yeah, I mean, oh my goodness, I feel like our parents are just so involved in our relationship. My parents, specifically my dad, he's a very not classical, like he's a very traditional. Thank you. Sorry, I
Classical?
lost the
Does he
word.
like classical music?
Yeah, I was like, where are we going
No,
with this?
he's very traditional, and so I know that that's been a thing that we've had varying opinions on. Like I remember the first time Carlos came over to my house, we weren't even dating yet, you guys, but he came over to my house. We were actually stopping there because like we weren't even staying. Like I stopped because I needed to like pick up something for youth group that night. It was something so random. We were there for maybe like 10 minutes, and like I think that was Carlos's first time meeting our family dog. So like we were just like meeting the dog and whatever. And my dad came home, and my dad like walked in, and we kind of both, I was like, oh, hi, Dad. And then Carlos was like, hello. And then my dad just like, he like stood there and he's like, hello. And then anyways, what came out of that moment my dad was like, your friend, he didn't come up to me and like shake my hand.
Goodness.
And like it was a whole thing. And like I understand. I love
nervous,
my
but they're
dad.
already
I'm like,
married.
and like we weren't even dating yet. And I just remember being like, oh gosh, Dad, like you gotta reel it in a little bit. I love my dad. I'm literally his carbon copy, if you want to know or not.
I actually didn't know that. Now I need to meet him.
Me too.
It's no, I'm literally, you guys, like I'm literally, his brain is living inside of me. But that was like a huge, like my dad's very traditional, and Carlos's parents, they've been so supportive of us during our entire relationship. I've learned a lot of things from them as well, and I've just loved having so many different people to give us insight into our relationship. And yeah, it's been a beautiful thing to just have them come along with us on this journey to encourage us. My parents like have given us, tips and stuff like that. Like my mom, one thing that she said that kind of stuck with me is like, oh, and it's very small advice, like very targeted and specific advice, but it's kind of lived rent free in my head. She said, when it comes to finances, don't argue about money that you don't have. Like there's no reason to get caught up in it. And so just little things like that over the years that they've kind of been slowly depositing into this relational bank that we have with each other has made a huge difference, I think, in how we navigate our relationship with each other.
Yeah,
I love that.
that was good.
That's phenomenal. Oh,
Thank you.
I really, sorry, in my head it's just like, I really need to meet Mel's dad.
I know that's kind of like all I'm thinking about right now. It's like what
Oh,
I'm
you
trying to
guys.
picture Mel's dad in my mind.
Carbon copy. We have another Mel.
No,
I
it's
know.
literally,
so
it's
this is
kind
what
of
I'm living
terrifying.
for the next week.
No, yeah.
is
Yeah.
picturing Mel's dad in my head, basically, just trying to like put a name
Oh my
or face to the
goodness.
name.
Yeah.
I love that.
I think.
It's our brains that are copied. I guess we look a lot alike. Anyways, I'm gonna.
No,
get
but
off
if
Jones
it's
is
the
nodding
brain,
his,
that's like
his
the
head
same
in the
thing.
back.
Yeah.
He's like, yup.
Jones behind the camera is nodding.
Oh, I love that. No, I love how you have so many different relationships that you've mentioned, whether it's romantic or whether it's parental and all the things. But is there a personal experience that you've experienced where, because you mentioned how God has to be the center of our relationships, is there a personal experience where faith played like a crucial role in a relationship, whether it's friends, whether it's parents, whether it's your own romantic relationship, like in like any experience
Yeah.
where faith was just so big?
Yeah, I feel like for me, like growing up in church, like I've had so many relationships with people that like were God centered. I think the first one I thought of is like one of like my big mentors in my life, like being Apollo Solse.
Oh yeah.
Shout out,
like,
follow Jose.
Having someone in my life that I've been able to go to just genuinely say like, hey, this is where I'm at. Not only do I need your help and your advice and your wisdom, I need you to get on your knees and pray for me. That has been a huge thing for me. Like even this last week, like something small came up and I was just like, man, like I need to contact my people and like I need them praying for me because I was nervous about it. It was a small thing, but I was getting anxious about it. And so having people in my life like Apollo Solse, like his wife Becca, like having people I could go to and say like, okay, like I need you to not only tell me if I'm in the wrong, because Becca, she will check me. Literally, if I do something and it's like, she's like, Mel, you're kind of in the wrong here. And I'll be like, deck me, man, like to just pin me down or something.
Yeah.
Not only do I need people like that in my life, I also need people that really will genuinely pray with me and encourage me and challenge me in my faith. That's been a huge thing I think that I've learned from Apollo is just like how to be challenged in my faith, because being in ministry is hard. Like that's just the
Preach it.
reality. It's brutal out here. It's not for the light. I think one thing that Pastor Ray said to me once is if you're not called to ministry, run away. Because like if you're not called to it, like it could eat you alive. And so having people in your life that are going to support you genuinely and go to battle for you, not even just like in a physical world, but like in prayer. Oh my goodness, like it is light and day.
Yeah. Within that, obviously you have friendships and you can be friends with anybody, really. So
Yeah.
you can be best friends with your parents. You can be best friends with your mentors. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's some boundaries within it, but yeah, you get it. But I would love if you could share a story where you feel like a friendship, if you can think of one that's really stood the test of time. Because you mentioned, I mean, it sounds like some really great friendships and relationships already who pray for you, who genuinely uplift you, and can speak into your life, which I think friends do too. But I mean, there's a level of friendship. So is there somebody you could, I mean, you don't have to name names if you don't want to.
Someone
but
you could call
if you want to
out.
maybe shout out somebody, but I would just love to, hear somebody that you feel like who's really stuck by you.
Is it okay if I give you like a list?
Yeah, let's hear the list.
Let's name drop right now.
I'm
ready for
gonna
names.
give you a quick list in like a
Okay.
minute. Okay. So this is gonna be my whole life story, you guys. Buckle up.
Okay.
So I'm in sixth grade. Picture sixth grade Mel, okay? I'm in sixth grade. My friend group at the time was the friend group I had from elementary school going into middle school. And they weren't friends, okay? They were really mean to me. I'm just kidding. I'm not gonna get emotional.
That's okay. You can get emotional.
Inner child Mel is crying. And I got to a point in my friendship with them where I was like, man, like I can't keep being friends with them. Like this is really toxic. I don't like the person that I'm becoming. I think of that saying that Pastor Jason always says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future. And I was getting to a point where I was like, man, like I don't really like the ride I'm on right now. And so I remember one day I literally just made the decision. I was like, I'm not gonna be friends with them anymore. And as a middle schooler, that's terrifying because who am I going to hang out with at lunch? Who am I going to walk with to class? Like those options immediately went to zero. And so I just remember I spent that day and I said just like a very simple prayer of like, God, help me find good friends. Like a very simple plea, but I was like, God, like I just need good friends in my life. I ended up finding my friend group that would stick with me all the way from 6th grade to 12th grade.
Wow.
Dang.
Like I kid
That's
you
a
not.
long period of time, especially
That's
with just
huge.
growing
Yeah.
up, you know?
No, like we went through a lot of stuff together, and like there's kind of just like this core group that I was able to find. They have meant so much to me. I've done a terrible job, you guys, of keeping up with them after high school. Like it's been my biggest. Like I think about it, and I'm like, oh, you guys, I need to get better.
Yeah, it happens to everybody.
I need to
Don't
get
beat
better at
yourself up.
communication. But yeah, I just like God provided me in such a major way. During that same season, I ended up finding what would be my best friend, who would also be my maid of honor. Her name is Yabi. I will name call her. She really has been just like the person in my life. Really like my other half. I love Carlos, but Yabi has also been a huge person
Carlos?
in my life. Who's Carlos? I don't know. I'm just kidding. Anyways, but the way that we started becoming friends is, again, I was kind of just praying like, you know, like I really want like a close friend. And when we first met, I actually hated her. Like not even just like.
So it's one of those friendships,
It
you know,
was-
like you
yeah.
laugh about it after.
Yeah, and like our relationship started. We actually happened to meet at church, but realized that we also knew each other at school. And there was one day we were at school. She decided to chase me around like the lunch area with a praying mantis.
I'm sorry.
Like
Oh, okay.
no, that's the story. Like literally, like I remember this like as bright as day. Like I talked to her about it, and I'm like, dude, do you remember that time you chased me around at lunch with a praying mantis, and you were like trying to freak me out because I hate bugs.
Oh my goodness.
Like
Mel
another thing,
hates bugs.
it's oh my gosh. Like if there was a bug in here right now, I'd be out. Like we would not be filming.
Mm-hmm.
And so again, just like a crazy time that God showed up and like provided a friend, and He's done that so many times throughout my life where I was in need of friends that I could go to, that I could look up to, and that could be stable in my life. And He brought me the small group that I now have. There was a time recently where like I was a newly married person. This wasn't that long ago, you guys. But I was newly married, and I was like, man, God, you know, like I need someone who's like kind of around my age, like is going through the same things, you know, that just understands, because I feel kind of goofy sometimes, you know, maybe talking to my older friends about things, or like talking to people who aren't married about like things that just happen in married life. And then one day randomly, I was in the downstairs office. This is another person I'll name drop. Jess Gaitan came up to me and she was like, hey Mel, like, can we go get coffee sometime? Like I think we should hang out. And I just remember being like, no way. Like it was such like a subtle, like silent prayer request. Like I didn't really tell anyone about it, but I was like, hey, you know, God, like that would be cool. And then suddenly, like, she's been someone over the last year who's been super helpful to me. And again, just so many moments in relationships with people where, like, I made that simple ask and I said, God, like, could you help me kind of figure this out? And God showed up.
Yeah, that's
love
beautiful.
No,
I
that's
love-
amazing. For me, I feel like relationships are like top 3 priorities. Like if I had to do
Oh, yeah.
a little hierarchy, it'd be like God, family, and then relationships. But then family's built in with relationships. And for me, I have difficulty balancing relationships with friends, peers, romantic, whatever it may be. Also with my relationship with God. How did you maneuver that? How did you navigate balancing both your relationships, whether it's romantic, friendship, mentor, parental, sibling, whatever it was, with also balancing it with your relationship with God? Because you also mentioned how you were in ministry throughout these like teenage years and whatnot.
Yeah, I actually wrote something down before we started the podcast. I like found it in some like old notes of mine, and I don't know why I wrote it down, but I think I wrote it down for this moment. I wrote down, I don't even know when I took this note. It's somewhere in my phone though. It says, you know, being in ministry, you will be tempted to cheat on your family.
Wow.
And I think that was a huge thing that I really struggled with being young in ministry, was just learning to balance time, because like I said, I've been at the church my whole life. I love serving God. I love serving people. Like I love all the things that come with ministry, the nitty gritty, the like big exciting things. I love being in the church. And there have been a lot of moments where I've had to be checked, even by like my dad. My dad checked me once and he was like, hey, like what about us? Like what about me? And like that's like a hard, I'm gonna get emotional, but like he, you know, it's like such a hard place to be in. And so I think for me, like I've really had to like learn over the years how to balance that, because it is a fine balancing act. Do we get it right every time? No. Like, I can't tell you how many people I have in a mental list where I'm like, oh, I need to follow up with this person. I need to follow up with that person. Oh, wait, there's like 30 other people that I would love to follow up with. So I don't have it figured out. I feel like it's something that maybe a lot of us struggle with just from conversations I've had with people. I don't know if it's an anxiety thing, which is like a huge thing I also struggle with. So I don't know if it just comes out of a place of anxiety. But really, I think like giving yourself grace in those moments and knowing that like, hey, you know what, like as long as I'm coming at this like with a genuine and pure heart, then like really where can I go wrong? Again, I think especially as you get older, it's harder to do. It's easier. I think of the like concept of like being a goldfish. Like, I'm a goldfish, man. If I don't see you, I'm gonna forget you.
Okay, yeah.
Okay, like if I don't see you every single day,
I was wondering where you were going with that.
no,
But I
I'm
was
scared.
like, okay, you carried.
That's what, like, literally, I can't tell you how many people in my life, like, in high school, it was so easy because I saw my friends every single day.
Yeah.
I saw, like, peers every single day, teachers, or, you know, my family or my siblings, like, because of just, like, my schedule, like, I saw them every day. Now, like, I live away from my parents, my family. Not that, like, I forget them, but sometimes I'm like, oh, shoot, like, I'm not going to see them, so I have to be really intentional to text them. Like, I have to be really intentional to reach out to them.
No, yeah, that's totally me. If I don't see you, like, I gotta like remember to actually follow up because
Yeah.
I'm in communication with the 3 people I see the most.
Yes.
So it's really hard when you don't like see people all the time. You know, 'cause it's like, oh wait, to actually stay in communication, I have to, you know, follow up with you.
Yes.
Like I can't just see you because I don't see you all the time anymore.
No, yeah.
Yeah. And so like I think it is a balancing act. I think it is, you know, giving yourself grace, and it's also just like being intentional. And I think another big thing for me has been really making sure that my priorities are in line. I know that was a big thing for me for a while, was my priorities were just all out of whack. I think there were many times where I had relationships like even above God. Like I had relationships, and then like after that was like maybe my family, maybe school, and like I should have put more focus into school than like the drama that maybe was going on with people. And so I think just like really learning to navigate that delicately, and also like you're gonna mess up, you're gonna make mistakes, you might fall short with someone, someone might fall short with you, and just extending grace in both ways. It's been kind of instrumental for me to kind of navigate that. It's a lot.
Yeah. I don't think, like I said in the beginning, it's ever easy to navigate. Is there, you know, as we close out this amazing conversation, is there any specific takeaways, any specific advice that you want our audience or whoever may be listening or watching to take away from just a specific topic of relationships, balancing them, putting God at the center of them? Whatever you may have would be great, because obviously you're Mel and we
It's gonna
just
come
want
from
to hear
Mel.
whatever
Yeah,
you
whatever
want to say.
whatever she says.
But yeah, I just want to give you space to share some advice and allow you to have that platform.
I mean, I think a big thing, like when it comes to relationships, whether it is romantic relationships, whether it is with friends or with mentors, like relationships are kind of this like beautiful preview to what our relationship with God could look like. And it doesn't mean that like, you know, we need to have one of each of every those relationships to better understand God. It's just a beautiful way to kind of understand that dynamic. Like that, I can't tell you how many times I've been in like a moment with like my parents or even like my brothers, and I'm like, man, like, is this how much God loves me? Because like I just love my little brothers so much, and I'm like so proud of them. And so like you get to learn and like see a lot of beautiful moments with people through that. And at the same time though, like being just really aware of how much the people around you form you. Being really aware of that statement of like, show me your friends, show me the people you're surrounding yourself with, show me the mentors in your life, show me, you know, maybe what are you taking away from what your parents are telling you, show me, you know, how things are going with your siblings or, you know, whoever the closest people to you are, and I'll show you what your future will look like. Because when, you know, if you're allowing yourself to be fed with negativity and that's all you're picking up, then you might set yourself on a different path. Maybe if you're in a situation where, you know, you have kind of like my friends in middle school where you're like, ooh, I don't know if that's what I want for my life. Just learning to, you know, really look at those situations and say, okay, like, is this what I want for myself?
Yeah.
Again, it's a hard place to be in. And I think another thing too, this is very random, I'll keep it short though, something that I've recently been doing as I've been kind of navigating different relationships in my life has been like praying for people more intentionally. And even I think praying for the people that we might have the most difficulty of being in a relationship with. Like, I can't tell you how many times I've either been going through a tough situation with like my parents or a close friend or someone, and like maybe they really hurt me, or maybe something has just kind of built up to this really like stressful moment. And if I took some time to pray for them genuinely and intentionally, saying like, God, like, you know what, like, would you just provide for my parents? Like, would you help them in their job? Would you give them wisdom? Would you give them knowledge? Like, speaking that over someone's life, suddenly it softens my heart to be a little bit more open and receptive to them, and to, you know, maybe kind of take some of that hurt and kind of process it a little bit on my own. That was like a lot of things. But yeah, I encourage you guys in your relationships, like, have fun too.
Yeah. No, relationships
be
are an
fun.
absolute beautiful thing. You know, God places people in our lives for a reason and a season and all the things.
And some for a lifetime.
Some for a lifetime.
Some for
Yeah.
a lifetime.
And, you know, I'm sure we could talk about relationships with Mel for
Oh, no.
the next 5 hours.
Yeah.
But we don't have time for that. But we just thank you, Mel, for opening up about your story and just giving us your time to speak about relationships and how God has played a role in that and all the good things.
Thanks,
Yep.
guys.
It's a pretty beautiful, beautiful testament
Yeah.
of what the Lord's doing in you.
Oh, thanks, guys.
So we appreciate you
Yep.
coming on and talking about it.
Shout
All
out.
the good things.
So on to just a couple announcements before we end this little episode with you guys. We just want to talk about following our socials. So follow us at thebay.youth. Don't forget the dot.
forget it.
You're going to keep updated on all our events and special stuff going on, and just the community that we have. And maybe see yourself on the gram. So don't miss it.
No, yeah. Speaking of community, we have small groups every Tuesday and
Yeah, we
Wednesday
do.
at 6:30. Concord, Tuesday, Brentwood, Wednesday. We don't want to miss it. We have phenomenal conversations just like this one within our own small groups.
Come on.
pretty beautiful. Don't
Wait,
miss
you
it, guys.
guys, can I take the last announcement?
You take the last
Go
announcement.
on, you guys. All right, y'all. I have an exciting announcement for you. Summer camp
Summer
registration
camp!
is
Woo!
open. All right, so make sure you go get registered. Go sign up. You do not want to miss the summer camp. It's going to be crazy. Space is limited. Last year we had a wait list. You do not want to end up on the wait list.
No, you don't.
Just be there.
Just be
We
there.
want to see you there.
It's going to be a great time. So make sure you guys get signed up.
Check it out. See you guys later.
Bye.